Chosen one. How many nights have you laid awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how it will all work out? Not just once, not twice, but so often that worry became part of your routine. You smiled during the day, holding it together for everyone else. But when the world grew quiet, that familiar heaviness returned. The pressure to figure it all out. The fear of not having enough. The silent questions no one could answer. How much longer can I keep this up? You've carried burdens no one sees. Responsibilities that weighed down your spirit while you kept walking like nothing was wrong. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that this was just life. A constant balancing act between hope and anxiety, between faith and fear. But what if I told you? What if I told that weight was never yours to carry? What if the sleepless nights, the overthinking, the quiet panic were never part of the design God had for you? You weren't created to live under the crushing pressure of how. You were chosen to walk in the confidence of who is guiding you. This message isn't just here to encourage you. It's here to release you. To remind your spirit of a truth it's always known but maybe forgot in the noise. That God is your provider. Not just in theory. Not just in desperate moments. But every day, in every detail, in ways you can't yet see. You've entered a season where heaven is saying, enough of the struggle. It's time for the supply. No more surviving on scraps of hope, wondering if breakthrough will ever come. This is your confirmation. You were never meant to carry the weight of provision on your own shoulders. So stay with me until the end of this video, because this isn't just another message. It's a divine transfer, a moment where the burden lifts and the blessing begins to flow. And if your spirit is already resonating with this, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to stay connected to these truths, and comment 888 as your declaration of stepping into God's infinite provision. Let's walk this journey together, because from this moment on, you're not carrying the weight, you're walking in the flow. Chapter 1. The Divine Economy, where your supply really comes from. Chosen one. Let's talk about something most people never truly understand. Where does your real provision come from? For so long, you were conditioned to believe that survival depends on how hard you work, how many hours you put in, how well you play by the world's rules. You were taught to measure your security by a paycheck, a bank balance, or by who you know. And when those things fell short, as they often do, you questioned yourself. Am I not doing enough? Why does it feel like I'm always behind? But here's a truth that shifts everything once you grasp it. You were never meant to depend on the world's economy, because you're connected to something far greater, a divine economy that doesn't rise and fall with markets, systems, or opinions. You see, the world teaches scarcity, that there's never quite enough. Enough money, enough opportunity, enough favor. It's a system built to keep people chasing, striving, and fearing lack. But God's system? It operates on abundance. It's not limited by numbers or logic. It responds to alignment, faith, and purpose. Chosen one. The reason you've felt so out of place in this world's system is because you were never designed to fit into it. You've been trying to thrive in an economy that was built on fear, while your spirit was created to flourish in an economy built on faith. Let me give you an example. Think about the story of Elijah during the famine. While the land dried up and people were desperate for survival, God told Elijah to go to a brook, and there, ravens brought him food. Not a paycheck, not a business deal, but ravens, creatures with no business delivering meals, became his supply chain. Why? Because when you're aligned with divine instruction, provision finds you. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to follow the world's logic. It just flows because heaven commanded it. And maybe right now you're standing in a place where the brook looks dry. Opportunities seem scarce. People who once supported you have disappeared. And the enemy wants you to believe that this is the end of your resources. But hear me clearly. Your source was never the brook. It was never the job, the client, the paycheck, or the person. Those were just channels. God has always been the source. When one channel dries up, the source doesn't panic. He simply redirects the flow. That's why you're hearing this message right now, because you've been staring at a closed door, thinking provision has stopped. But in reality, God is shifting you into a new dimension, a place where you no longer mistake the channel for the source. Let me share something personal. There are people who, on paper, should have failed. People who lost jobs, had no financial backup, no powerful connections. And yet, they thrived. Why? Because they understood this one principle. Provision is tied to purpose, not performance. When you align with your calling, when you walk the path God designed for you, provision becomes attracted to you. It chases you down because heaven funds what heaven assigns. And that's why you've felt so much resistance when trying to build your life solely through effort. Because God wasn't trying to punish you. He was trying to disconnect you from a system that was never meant to sustain you. Think about it. How many times did you push yourself to exhaustion only to see minimal results? How often did you rely on human help only to be disappointed or overlooked? That wasn't failure. That was divine intervention. A gentle redirection away from dependence on man-made systems and into trust in divine flow. Now, I know what you might be thinking. But I still have bills to pay. I still have responsibilities. And you're right. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's about redefining it. When you start seeing God as your source, you stop panicking when a channel closes. You stop begging people to support you. You stop fearing the next financial hurdle. Instead, you start expecting new channels to open, sometimes in ways you couldn't have predicted if you tried. Chosen one, the divine economy is already at work in your life. You've had moments, small glimpses, where provision showed up unexpectedly. A bill got paid just in time. Someone offered help without you asking. An opportunity appeared when you were ready to give up. Those weren't coincidences. They were reminders. Whispers from heaven saying, "You're connected to me, not the system." But here's the shift. It's time to stop seeing those moments as rare miracles and start seeing them as your new normal. God isn't just stepping in to rescue you in emergencies. He's establishing a lifestyle where divine provision is constant. That's what it means to live under the divine economy. It's not based on striving. It's based on trust, alignment, and purpose. So today, ask yourself, are you still depending on channels that have dried up? Or are you ready to fully embrace the source that never runs dry? Because once you make that shift in your spirit, you'll stop asking, "How will I make it?" and start declaring, "I know provision is already on its way." This is the foundation of divine funding. Not luck, not chance, but a system designed by heaven, one that responds not to effort alone, but to the calling placed on your life. And trust me, when you walk in alignment with that calling, the resources, the connections, the opportunities, they will appear right on time. Not because you chased them, but because you finally understood that they were chasing you. Stay with me, chosen one. Because in the next chapter, we'll talk about how to recognize when this activation begins. When heaven declares, "Enough struggle, it's time for overflow." Let's keep going. Your next level is calling. Chapter 2. The Activation. when heaven says, "Enough struggle." There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey where the atmosphere around them shifts, subtly at first, almost like a whisper in the wind. It's not announced with fireworks or grand displays. In fact, if you're not spiritually tuned in, you might miss it. But for those who sense it, it's undeniable. It's the moment when heaven declares, "Enough. Enough of the struggle. Enough of the constant survival mode. Enough of feeling like you're always one step away from collapse." This is what I call the activation, a divine turning point where your life moves from barely getting by to being carried by grace. You see, chosen one, God doesn't allow endless seasons of hardship without purpose. Every delay, every closed door, every tear shed in private, it was all leading somewhere. And when the preparation is complete, when your heart is ready, heaven speaks a word over your life that shifts everything. Now. But here's the thing. The activation doesn't always look like what people expect. It's not always a sudden deposit in your bank account or an overnight success story. It starts internally before it manifests externally. You'll notice it first in your spirit. That pressure you've lived under, it begins to lift. The anxiety that used to grip you when bills arrived or when plans fell through, it starts to fade. Not because the circumstances have fully changed yet, but because something inside you knows, "I'm no longer walking alone in this." That's the first sign of activation. A deep, unshakable peace that doesn't match your situation. It's the kind of peace that confuses people around you. They'll ask, "How can you be so calm when things still look uncertain?" But you'll know, because you've felt the shift. Then, little by little, the evidence starts to appear. It could be an unexpected opportunity, a debt forgiven, a person reaching out with exactly what you needed, or doors opening that you didn't even knock on. These are not random. They are confirmations that the activation has begun. Heaven is no longer just watching your struggle. It's responding. But here's a truth many miss. Before the external blessings pour in, God often ensures that your mindset is prepared to handle them. Because what good is provision if you're still thinking like a person in lack? What good is overflow if your heart is still gripped by fear that it could all disappear tomorrow? That's why, for many chosen ones, the activation feels like a spiritual rewiring. Old thoughts of unworthiness, fear, and doubt start getting exposed. You begin to recognize how often you've limited yourself. Not because God wasn't ready to bless you, but because you were too busy expecting the worst. The activation demands that you start expecting the best. Not as wishful thinking, but as a certainty. Because you finally understand who your source is. Remember, divine funding isn't just about money. It's about ease replacing struggle. It's about confidence replacing fear. It's about moving through life knowing that provision is attached to your purpose, and nothing can sever that connection. One of the clearest signs you're in this phase is when things that once felt heavy begin to feel light. Tasks that drained you now flow with ease. Problems that used to keep you up at night resolve themselves before you even get the chance to worry. People who once ignored you suddenly see your value. And here's where it gets even more supernatural. You'll start receiving solutions you didn't ask for. Ideas will drop into your spirit at just the right time. Resources will appear from places you never considered. It's as if heaven is orchestrating every detail behind the scenes, and all you have to do is stay in alignment. But, chosen one, let me be clear. The activation isn't about doing more. It's about learning how to receive. This is where many struggle. We've been conditioned to believe that unless we're hustling, striving, and exhausting ourselves, we don't deserve blessings. But divine provision operates on a different frequency. It responds to trust, not toil. When heaven says, "Enough struggle," it's not inviting you to work harder. It's inviting you to rest in assurance. That doesn't mean laziness. It means moving forward with the confidence that what you need is already being provided for as you walk in purpose. Think of it like this. The activation is like stepping onto a river's current. You're still moving, but now you're being carried by something greater than your own strength. And yes, people will notice. Some will marvel at how things are unfolding for you. Others might question it, even envy it. But you'll know the truth. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is what happens when heaven decides your season of struggle is over. So if you've been sensing that shift, if peace has started replacing panic, if solutions are appearing without the usual fight, if you're beginning to feel lighter, freer, more expectant, then congratulations, chosen one. The activation has begun. And once heaven starts moving on your behalf, there's no going back to the old ways. You're stepping into a flow where provision, favor, and opportunity become your daily companions. In the next chapter, we'll explore why God is releasing this overflow in your life now, and how it's tied directly to your greater purpose, not just your personal comfort. Stay aligned. The best is not coming. It's already unfolding. Chapter 3. Purpose over payment. Why God is releasing overflow now. Chosen one. By now, you're beginning to understand that this divine shift, the activation of supernatural provision, isn't random. It's not just a reward for surviving hard times, and it's certainly not about making life comfortable for comfort's sake. No, this overflow is intentional. It's strategic, and it's deeply connected to something far greater than your immediate needs. You see, when God begins to fund your life in ways that defy logic, it's because heaven is investing, not in your lifestyle, but in your purpose. There's a critical truth that separates those who experience fleeting blessings from those who walk in sustained overflow. God funds assignments, not just ambitions. Let that sink in. While the world chases wealth for status, survival, or self-indulgence, the chosen ones are resourced for a different reason. You are being funded because your life carries a mission, one that can no longer be delayed by lack, fear, or limitation. Think back for a moment. Remember those dreams you had years ago? The visions that stirred your heart, the ones that felt too big for your circumstances? Maybe you wrote them down. Maybe you pushed them aside, thinking, one day, when I have enough, I'll pursue this. Here's the revelation. Those weren't just dreams, they were divine blueprints. And now, the reason provision is being released isn't because you finally earned it. It's because the appointed time for that blueprint has arrived. God isn't funding you just to clear debts or upgrade your lifestyle. He's releasing resources so that what He planted in you can finally come to life. This is why, for many chosen ones, the waiting season felt so long. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because before God releases overflow, He ensures that your heart is ready, that you've been refined enough to handle abundance without being consumed by it, that you understand money is a tool, not a trophy. You see, divine funding comes with a level of trust. God doesn't pour into empty purposes. He pours into vessels that are aligned with His greater plan. That's you. You've been chosen not just to receive, but to build, to create spaces, opportunities, and legacies that impact lives far beyond your own. Let me tell you something important. Overflow is not about ego. It's about impact. When God releases abundance, it's because He knows you won't hoard it. You'll multiply it. You'll sow into others. You'll fund visions, support missions, uplift communities, break generational curses, and open doors that others couldn't open for themselves. This is why your overflow is arriving now. Because heaven has deemed you ready. Not perfect, but prepared. You've proven in the drought that your heart stayed pure. When you had little, you still gave. When you were overlooked, you still served. When you were stretched thin, you still believed. And now, God can trust that when the blessings flow, you won't forget why they came. You won't lose yourself in materialism or be distracted by temporary pleasures. You'll stay anchored in purpose. But here's something you need to understand moving forward. With divine provision comes divine responsibility. You're not being blessed just to breathe easier. You're being equipped to move faster, dream bigger, and execute what's been sitting dormant in your spirit. This is the season where excuses expire. You can no longer say, "I don't have the resources," because heaven is ensuring that what you need will find you. But when it does, the question becomes, will you move? Many people pray for provision, but freeze when it arrives because they're still operating with a survival mindset. They see the overflow as a safety net instead of a launch pad. Chosen one, you weren't called to play it safe. You were called to build. When God funds your life, He's not just answering prayers. He's activating purpose. Look around. There are lives connected to your obedience. People waiting for what you've been assigned to create, lead, or release into the world. This is bigger than paying off bills or upgrading your surroundings. This is about stepping fully into the role you were born for. And yes, abundance will make life easier in many ways. But ease isn't the goal. Impact is. You're being positioned to fund dreams, not just your own, but those around you. To be the person who doesn't just ask for help, but becomes the help. To shift atmospheres wherever you go because you carry not just financial blessing, but divine authority. And here's something powerful. When you walk in this kind of purpose-driven overflow, the provision doesn't run out, because heaven continually funds what heaven assigns. It's a cycle of receiving, stewarding, and releasing. And as long as you stay aligned with your mission, the flow remains open. So if you're wondering, why now? Why is this blessing showing up in my life at this moment? The answer is simple. Because the world needs what you carry, and God refuses to let lack delay it any longer. You've been entrusted with this overflow because you've shown that you value purpose over payment, that you understand wealth isn't about status, it's about service. So as the resources begin to appear, don't shrink back. Don't question if you're worthy. You are. You were chosen for this. Lift your head. Dust off those visions. Revisit those dreams. Because now the funding is here to bring them to life. This isn't just your season of blessing. It's your season of building. And heaven is backing every step you take in alignment with your calling. In the next chapter, we'll address something crucial. The mindset that could block this flow if left unchecked. Because even with divine provision, if you're still thinking like a person trapped in scarcity, you'll never fully step into the abundance that's waiting for you. Let's break that once and for all, because your future requires a mindset as expansive as the blessings being released. Chapter 4. Breaking the scarcity mindset once and for all. Chosen one. It's one thing to receive divine provision. It's another to hold on to it and let it multiply. And the biggest barrier isn't a lack of opportunity. It's not external circumstances. It's something far more subtle, but far more dangerous. The scarcity mindset. You see, even when heaven begins to release blessings, if your mind is still trapped in survival mode, you'll treat abundance like it's temporary. You'll live in fear that what you've received will slip through your fingers. And without realizing it, you'll sabotage the very flow God intended to sustain you. Scarcity isn't about how much you have, it's about how you think. There are people with full bank accounts who still operate in fear, constantly worrying about losing it all, afraid to invest, afraid to give, clinging tightly because deep down, they believe there's never enough. And then there are those who, even with little, walk in peace because they know their source is eternal. Chosen one. God didn't bring you this far to bless you temporarily. But if you don't break free from old patterns of thought, you'll treat divine provision like it's fragile, something you must guard with anxiety instead of steward with confidence. Let's be honest. Many of us were raised in environments where lack was normal, where conversations about money were filled with stress, arguments, or silence, where we learned to expect disappointment, to prepare for struggle, to celebrate small wins but never believe in lasting abundance. Those early experiences planted seeds, and if left unchecked, those seeds grow into mental strongholds. Thoughts like, I don't deserve more. Good things never last. If I get ahead, something bad will happen. But here's the truth you need to hear today. Those thoughts are lies. They are not your truth. And they have no place in the life God is building for you. Scarcity is a mindset of fear. Abundance is a mindset of trust. You're being called to shift, from clenching your fists in fear of losing to opening your hands in expectation of continual provision. This doesn't mean being reckless or irresponsible. It means understanding that when God funds your life, He doesn't do it once and disappear. He establishes a flow, one that responds to your faith, your alignment, and your willingness to let go of fear-based thinking. Let me give you a picture. Imagine living like a person stranded in a desert, finally discovering a well of water. A scarcity mindset would cause you to take tiny sips, afraid the well might run dry at any moment. But a person who understands divine provision knows that well is connected to a source far beneath the surface. It's not running out. You can drink fully, share freely, and trust that the supply is deeper than you can see. Chosen one. You've been standing at the well, but still sipping like you're in danger of drought. It's time to change that. When God says you're stepping into overflow, He means overflow. Not a brief season of relief, but a lifestyle where resources are renewed like morning mercies. But here's where many stumble. They receive a blessing and immediately start calculating how long it will last. That's the old mindset talking. That's survival mode whispering fears that no longer belong to you. You are not in survival mode anymore. You've graduated into divine flow. And flow doesn't pause because you've been blessed once. It continues as long as you remain aligned with trust and purpose. Let me challenge you with this. Start expecting more, not from a place of greed, but from a place of understanding that your purpose requires continuous provision. Stop thinking in terms of just enough. God didn't design you for barely making it. He designed you to thrive, to give without fear, to build without hesitation, to dream without shrinking your vision to fit your current resources. The scarcity mindset tells you to play small, to lower your expectations so you won't be disappointed. But heaven is telling you to expand, to lift your eyes and see that the supply has no limit. Remember this: You're not burdening God by expecting ongoing provision. You're honoring Him by trusting that He is who He says He is. A provider without limits. A source that never runs dry. It's time to uproot every thought that says, I have to hold tightly or I'll lose it. I shouldn't expect too much. This might be the last breakthrough I get. No, this is not the last breakthrough. It's the beginning of a new pattern. A pattern where you wake up knowing provision is already assigned to your day. A pattern where you stop asking, will it come? And start declaring, it's already on the way. Chosen one. Breaking the scarcity mindset is one of the most powerful things you can do to sustain the overflow God is releasing. Because when your mind aligns with abundance, you create space for even greater blessings to flow through you. This isn't positive thinking. It's prophetic living. You're stepping into a reality where lack has no authority over you anymore. And once your mind is free, your life will follow. In the next chapter, we'll explore what it truly looks like to walk in this new financial frequency. How to carry yourself when heaven is backing every step you take. Because abundance isn't just about what you receive, it's about how you move when you know you're fully funded by divine hands. Stay aligned. Stay expectant. The shift in your mindset is unlocking doors you didn't even know existed. Chapter 5. Walking in the New Financial Frequency. Chosen one. Once the scarcity mindset is broken, something extraordinary begins to happen. You don't just receive differently. You start to walk differently. There's a shift in your presence. A quiet confidence that speaks louder than words. It's not arrogance. It's not pride. It's the natural result of knowing you are backed by heaven. You've stepped into what I call a new financial frequency. It's not just about numbers in a bank account. It's about the energy you carry when you know that provision is no longer a question. It's a guarantee. When you walk in this frequency, you stop chasing opportunities, because opportunities start chasing you. You no longer enter rooms wondering if you belong. You know that any door you walk through has already been prepared for you. You stop calculating every move based on fear of loss and start making bold decisions based on trust in divine supply. Here's the truth. When God funds your life, it changes how you carry yourself. You begin to move with ease where you once felt resistance. You speak with authority where you once hesitated. You plan with vision instead of limitation. And yes, people will notice. Some will admire it. Some will question it. Others may even feel intimidated by it, because they won't understand how things seem to align for you so effortlessly. But you'll know, it's not effort alone. It's alignment. You see, this financial frequency isn't about working harder. It's about flowing in sync with divine timing and purpose. It's knowing when to move, when to rest, and when to simply allow blessings to find you without forcing anything. One of the clearest signs you're walking in this frequency is when you start experiencing favor without explanation. Doors open that you never knocked on. Solutions appear before you even voice the problem. Resources come from unexpected places. And the beauty of it all? You stop being surprised by it, because you understand this is your new normal. But let me be clear. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect or challenge-free. What it means is that challenges no longer shake you, because you know that every obstacle comes with a provision attached. Every need is already met before you even perceive it. Walking in this frequency also means you stop shrinking to make others comfortable. For too long, You may have dimmed your light, played small, or downplayed your blessings to avoid judgment, envy, or misunderstanding. But chosen one, you weren't called to blend in. You were called to be a living example of what divine provision looks like. When others see you walking in overflow, it's not to provoke jealousy. It's to provoke faith. Your life becomes a testimony, a silent sermon that says, "This is what happens when you trust God as your source." Now here's something important to remember. As you elevate, you don't owe anyone an explanation for the favor on your life. Some will ask, how did you manage that? How did things turn around so fast? And while you could try to explain divine alignment, many won't truly grasp it, because spiritual things often confuse natural minds. Your job isn't to convince anyone. Your job is to keep walking, to stay focused on your path, to steward the blessings well, and to remain humble, knowing that this flow is sustained by grace, not by your own strength. Another key aspect of this frequency is learning to operate from a place of rest, not laziness, but divine rest. A posture where you no longer grind out of fear, but build from a place of peace and assurance. You'll find that ideas come easier. Connections happen organically. Provision shows up without the usual stress. Why? Because you're no longer forcing doors open. You're walking through the ones that God has already unlocked. This is where life starts to feel almost effortless. Not because there's no work involved, but because the weight of that work is no longer on your shoulders alone. You're co-laboring with the divine. You're moving in sync with a higher plan. And when that happens, even your smallest steps carry power. Chosen one, you've entered a frequency where abundance isn't occasional, it's continuous, where blessings don't just come to you, they flow through you. Because now, you're not just funded for yourself. You're funded for impact, for legacy, for purpose far beyond your personal needs. And as long as you stay aligned, as long as you remember that your source is eternal, this frequency will carry you higher than you ever imagined. In the next chapter, we'll talk about something inevitable: the reactions of those around you. Because when you start walking in divine flow, not everyone will celebrate it. But don't worry. You'll learn exactly how to navigate the confusion, envy, and curiosity that comes when a chosen one starts living fully funded by heaven. Because this journey isn't just about receiving, it's about standing firm in who you've become. Final chapter: the lifestyle of supernatural provision. Chosen one. By now you've realized this isn't just a moment. It's not a lucky break. It's not a season that will pass like the wind. You've stepped into a lifestyle, a way of living where supernatural provision is your foundation, not your exception. This is what you were always meant for, to walk daily in the assurance that you are funded by heaven, not by the fragile systems of this world. But with this revelation comes a powerful reminder. This lifestyle isn't built on chasing blessings. It's built on staying aligned, because divine provision doesn't flow where fear reigns. It flows where trust resides. It flows where purpose leads the way. It flows where the heart remains open, humble, and expectant. You no longer have to wake up wondering if you'll have enough. That question has already been answered. The supply was secured long before you ever saw the need. Now your focus shifts. No longer, how will I survive? But how can I serve? No longer, will I make it? But what am I called to build with this overflow? This is the beauty of living in divine flow. It frees your mind from scarcity, so your spirit can fully embrace its assignment. But hear this. Not everyone will understand this version of you. Some will question how things turned around so quickly. Others may doubt, envy, or distance themselves because they can't comprehend favor they didn't witness being earned. That's okay. You weren't called to explain divine mysteries. You were called to embody them. Let your life speak. Let the peace you carry, the confidence in your steps, and the generosity in your hands be the evidence of who's truly funding your journey. Chosen one, you're no longer living under pressure. You're living under promise. And that promise says you are fully backed, fully supported, fully equipped for every assignment ahead. You've been approved by heaven. You've been entrusted with provision not just to elevate your life, but to elevate everyone connected to your purpose. So as you move forward, remember, this isn't about a destination. It's about maintaining the posture of trust, of gratitude, of alignment. Because when you stay in that flow, provision doesn't stop. It multiplies. This is your new reality. A lifestyle where divine deposits are made daily, where ideas, resources, connections, and opportunities are drawn to you, not because you chase them, but because you carry the frequency of someone who knows, my source never runs dry. So lift your head, walk boldly, dream freely, give generously, and rest deeply, because you are living proof of what happens when heaven says, enough struggle, let the abundance begin. And as you continue on this journey, never forget, you're not just receiving blessings. You've become a vessel for them. Welcome to the lifestyle of supernatural provision, chosen one. It's only just beginning.